Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to do velocity banking with only credit cards, right? Now, I know some of you have mental roadblocks in your head because you think because you don't have a personal line of credit or home equity line of credit, for some reason you can't do velocity banking, and that's simply not true, right? I started doing velocity banking back in 2021, I think, with a credit card because I didn't have access to home equity line of credit or personal line of credit, right? And if you don't know what velocity banking is, let me say this first. Maybe you would want to click the link to Velocity Banking 101 and then come back here to continue your studies to understand what the strategy is. But all it is a really simple strategy where you're going to pay off debts quickly using a line of credit. And a line of credit, all it is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So isn't that a credit card, right? So here I'm going to explain that yes, you can use a credit card. Now, there are some disadvantages using a credit card. You can't pay one credit card with another, and you can't pay one credit card monthly payment with that same credit card, right? Like you can with a personal home equity line of credit. But you can still use a credit card, right? And now you might have to use additional tools to kind of overcome those restrictions, but it's okay. So, for example, I use Plastique, right? I'm not sponsored by them, but I use Plastique to pay my mortgage, and even Plastique knows the benefits of using a credit card as your main operating account. So you can see increased cash flow, earn more rewards, right? And one of the things that maybe you should be aware of is like what are the rewards I get from a credit card, right? Because even though Plastique charges about 2.9%, you might have a credit card that charges 3 to 5% in rewards. And I saw this article. It's actually a link on Plastique's website, or actually it's Plastic with a Q, but I like calling it Plastique. That a 29-year-old bought a $60,000 Tesla and earned $5,000 in rewards, right? Bought it with a credit card. So if your credit card has good rewards, it might not actually cost you anything to use Plastique if you have good rewards, right? It might be a wash in the worst case scenario, and you might get huge amount of rewards based on how much you spend. Okay. All right. So we always talk about this all the time. There's only two requirements in doing velocity banking. And actually, let me go ahead and erase this. Right. So there's only two requirements. First one is the budget. So we have a budget right here. It's $5,000 income, $3,000 of expenses, or almost 4,000, and we have about $1,000 left over in checking and savings, right? And so I've done that all for you. Now what we have to do is we have to select our line of credit because that's going to be our main operating account, right? Our main operating account. And what we're going to do with velocity banking is pretty much try to put our entire paycheck into that line of credit. Now, maybe the first month there might be some issues because we can't put our entire paycheck in there in one credit card because we can't pay credit card number two with credit card number one. If we had a line of credit or personal line of credit, we can, but we just make a few adjustments. Okay. So velocity banking, we always make this assumption we're always going to have the same income and our checking and savings is going to go to zero, right? Because we're going to use our entire cash flow to pay off our debt, and we don't want to be in a situation where we have something left over and then we have 27, 30%, 6%, 6% interest loans that are sucking up all of our money. And not only this, these payments are sucking up our cash flow. I want to increase our cash flow too. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. So what's our main operating account? Now, in my opinion, I haven't really heard, what the official consensus is on this, but this is just me. Whatever is the highest credit limit and the lowest interest rate, I probably want to use as my main credit line, right? My main operating account. So we only have two credit cards that are lines of credit, and I'm just going to use this one because this has a this has a high limit and a lower interest rate. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to put this here. So 27%, and I'll say this is a $25,000 credit limit, and we'll say this is month zero. Okay, and let me go ahead and make this a little bit easier too. I'll just delete this column. Okay, so now this is what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to assume that credit card one has cashback rewards. So we can, if we're making payments to the auto loan and mortgage, again, we could probably use Plastique. And again, this depends on you and your situation. So it may not applicable if you have just a regular credit card without any points. But we could actually maybe even make a little bit of money if our rewards are really that good, right? But we're going to go ahead and make our payments using a credit card, using Plastique with the loans. And then with credit card two, this is what I might do. I might actually, just to make it easier, do a balance transfer to manage my cash flow, right? So maybe it does cost me a little bit of money in the short term, but in the long term, everything will just be easier to manage, right? So this is what I'm going to do, okay? So let's go ahead and do this, and look at this. When whatever we use as our main operating account, this goes to zero, right? Because when we dump our entire paycheck, we satisfy that minimum monthly payment, okay? And now let's go ahead and figure out what the expenses are and also what our cash flow is, C2 minus C3, right? So we have a decent cash flow. And look at this. We went from 1,000 left over to 1,725. So isn't that insane? Like just by making this our main operating account, we kind of shot up in how much we could pay off our debt, okay, and our cash flow. So now let's go ahead and do this. And we're going to go ahead and put in what's our balance, right? So our balance is going to be right now, if you see right here, it's going to be 20 grand. Okay, so 20 grand. Now, if I have a 20 grand balance and I want to maybe even do a transfer of $5,000 here, I might have to just wait one payment because you can't transfer the entire 5,000 because you have to also take account to the fees, right? But again, the reason I might do this is just to make it easier to manage, so I only have one place to put my account, and then I could just free up this cash flow immediately. So even though I might pay a little bit right now, in the long term, it's easier to manage. But that's just me. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this. And what we're going to do is just go to H2 minus our cash flow, 1725. Okay, and actually, let me go ahead and include what would essentially be the interest, right? So that'll be I2. Now, it's not going to matter in month zero because there's no interest. Month one is when you get that first statement and you get the interest, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And then the interest paid is the average of these two, right? And then what you do, again, this isn't the exact way that they calculate, but this is good enough. The interest is calculating the average daily balance, and then you just get the interest rate, so 0.27, and then divide by 12, right? You divide by 12 because you want the monthly interest, and this is the annual interest. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we could probably just make a transfer to here after month one, and we're going to transfer $5,000, right? So what we're going to do is just add additional $5,000 plus a $5,000 3% fee, because that's usually the balance transfer fee. Okay, and so now, just as long as we're under this 25 grand credit limit, we should be good. And guess what? We take a look here. Oh my goodness, this is a zero now, and we're good, right? So I think after 1 month, it's actually going to not be 5K, a little bit under. In my experience, when you have like a 30% interest rate, 2/3 of your payment goes to interest, and 1/3 of it goes to the actual balance of the credit card. All right, so now what we do is, now look at this. We have 1,900 in cash flow. Look how much we increased it just by in 1 month. Okay, and so now what we got to do is in the next month, we copy and paste, but now we just do minus 1,900. Okay, and then now what we're gonna do is just kind of copy and paste this sucker, right? Control C, Control V, Control C. Why do I even do Control C? It's just Control V, paste, 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 paste the formula, and then watch that sucker go to negative, right? Because negative means that it's pretty much paid off. And then we're going to transfer another debt. So J2, I'm sorry, 3 plus 1. And then let's see how long it took us to pay it off, right? It took us about 16 months to pay off 25K. So let me just put that as a milestone, right? And let me just do that here. And I'll say 16, I'll say 25K, 16 months. And that's applies to both credit card one and two because we kind of did at the same time. Now, here's the thing, right? We have this auto loan and the mortgage, and one of the things that I kind of skipped over is like, what do you know which debts to pay off first? And let me kind of go over my cheat sheet criteria of the debt payoff. What you want to do is either you could do it two ways. The first method is just looking for debt that has the highest payment, lowest balance, and the highest interest rate, and finding debts that fit these three categories as much as possible. Or another thing you could do is just ignore the interest rate and use a cash flow index formula, right? All that means is that it's going to give you a number, And it's like a ranking system. The lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off first. Okay. So let me just actually do this and calculate the cash flow index of these loans. Now, this is paid off, but what was it originally? It was 20,000 divided by 650, right? And then this is 5,000 divided by 175, okay? And this one, the auto loan is 15,000 divided by 400. And then this one is 200,000 divided by 1200, right? And again, I would consider this to be like a ranking system that solely focuses on the ratio of the balance to the payment. And the lower the balance compared to the payment, this number becomes really low, and that's the one you want to pay off first. Now, I kind of ignored it because, in my opinion, feel free to prove me wrong. You want to use your main operating account as the one that has the highest credit limit. It makes things much easier to manage, right? So now the next thing we have to pay off is this auto loan, right? So this auto loan, I have uh, this calculator from Bankrate kind of already set up, right? And I kind of pre-did this, but basically, if you put in the original amount, interest rate, it'll give you the estimated monthly payment. And what you do is you kind of start at 15,000, right? 15,000. I might go a little bit fast on this, but you look for 15,000, which would be right here, and then you scroll down the number of months it took you to pay off the first two credit cards, which would be 16 months, I believe. 16 months. So you just kind of go down 16 times. So one, two, three, four. You just keep going. I kind of pre-highlighted this, so it's $9,734. So let's go ahead and here. So by the time we paid off these two credit cards, now the balance has of this auto loan has kind of gone down considerably. And what's our new cash flow index? So let's just go ahead and calculate that. 9734, right? So our new cash flow index is 24. Again, we definitely want to pay this off now. And what we do is we move this auto loan, so $9,734, right? So $9,734, okay? And then guess what? Guess what? We moved it to the credit line. Bam, our cash flow has increased to 2,300. Isn't that insane? 2,300. Okay, so now let's see how long it takes us to pay off the sucker off. And now what we do is replace this with 2,300. Okay, so now let's go ahead, whoopsie, and see how long it takes us to pay off this auto loan. So now it's 21 months, right? So how much do we pay off? 15 plus 25K, I think that's 40K. 40K, 21 months. So under 2 years, we paid off 40K. Mind blown, right? Now what we have to do is we now need to, the mortgage is the last loan, right? It's the loan we want to pay off quick. But if you ever looked at a loan, a mortgage loan, the amortization schedule, if you have a 6% interest rate after 30 years, you're paying 112% interest, right? So at the end of 30 years, you're going to pay $200,000 on the loan, and you're going to pay around about 220,000. I don't know what the exact amount is, and maybe I could look that up too. But 6%, and let me just do this. I have this calculator ready. You would pay about 231,000 in interest, right? So the total amount you pay is 431,000. So what you want to do is just pay the sucker off, right? And Velocity Banking can help you pay the sucker off while managing your cash flow, right? And that's the most important thing. So think about this. If somebody had 2,300 in their checking and savings, they said, "Oh, I'm just going to dump all my money of checking and savings into this loan, or this mortgage." I'm kind of afraid to do that because what happens if there's an emergency, right? And obviously you have these credit cards here, but one of the things that we're trying to prevent is something called the segregation of income. And that's the reason why most six-figure people are broke. And I go over that in another video, right? But here, what we're going to do is just pay this off, principal off in $5,000 chunks. You don't have to do in big chunks. We could just do $5,000 chunks and just pay it off, right? So let me go here, to this calculator, and let's take a look how long it takes us to pay off $5,000 of the loan, you know, 1 year, about 1 year, right? And look how much we actually paid off. Well, actually, man, I'm kind of getting dizzy looking at this, right? So I think we paid off about $5,000 after 2 years, right? A little bit more than $5,000, but look how much interest we paid. 22 grand after 2 years, right? Now let's just assume this is a brand new mortgage, and now we got to look at after 21 months, 21 months of what the actual um, balance is. So 21 months. So it's about 195, right? So 195. So right now we're at 195K. And remember, right? So remember this. Let me go back here. 21 months. Look how, so let me just kind of go back to the schedule right here. So we certainly paid in the first year 2 grand versus 11 grand or 12 grand, right? And after 21 months, it's, I don't even know how people think that this is actually a good idea, right? You ever look at this and think, what are people thinking? Well, that's where we're at today. Paying 20 to grand so that we can pay 4 grand to the bank. That's insane, right? So, like I said before, it took us 21 months to pay 5 grand. But what if we just do this, right? What if we transfer 5 grand? So this is 190 from here, the credit card to the mortgage, right? Or mortgage to the credit card. You know what I'm saying. So let's go ahead and do this. We add 5 grand here, and then just keep doing what we're doing, right? So we do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then just keep our cash flow, right? And look how much it took for us to pay off 5 grand and using this method, right? Now, again, we still maintain control of our money because if we have extra emergencies or anything like that, we just get off the credit card, right? But if you dump your entire cash flow, actual cash into your checking savings, you're screwed. Well, you're not screwed. You'll be fine, right? But most people are afraid to do that. And I know that from talking to people experience, right? But let's see how long it takes us in the schedule, the amortization schedule to pay off 5K more of debt, right? So here we paid off about 5K in 2 years, and then we get about another 5K in about another 2 years, right? So a little bit less than 4 years, but look at how much interest we paid. Oh my goodness, 40 grand, right? And then we take a look here, and so 22, 23, right? It's only 2 months. So do you want to wait 2 years or 2 months? I don't know about you, but I'll pay it off in 2 months, even with the credit card, right? All right, so now, again, we just rinse and repeat over and over again. That's all we do. We just rinse and repeat over and over again until this sucker's paid off. And here's a cool thing. We're still, even though our cash flow is as kind of is decreasing our credit line, we're still making the monthly payments. So it's almost like double payments, really, but not really. I mean, if you ever do a comparison between directly putting your money into extra savings and velocity banking, this is going to be the same. It's almost going to be the same, right? Now, the whole point of it is that most people will never do it just because they don't, they're sacrificing access to their money. And that's how loans work when you overpay them, right? So that's why you need other tools like credit lines, credit cards, get as much as you can um, in order for you to support yourself. But what you want to do is put your whole entire money into one line of credit so that you can use your cash flow to easily pay off your debts and still maintain control over money. Now, let's go ahead and do this. So all we have to do is just kind of figure out how many more times, and again, this is going to be a little bit inaccurate, but it takes us 2 months to pay 5K. We've kind of estimated that, right? So why don't we just do this? So 190 divided by 5, oh, sorry, 190 divided by 5, 38. So 38 times we can do this, or 30, we just need to do what we call the chunking 38 times. And if we multiply that by 2 months, or 2 months, it'll show us how many months this is actually gonna take. So this is gonna take us 76 months. Okay. So what's 23 plus 76? 23 plus 76. So let me just do this here. And I'll just actually do this. So 23 plus 76. Again, I'm doing a little bit of cowboy math here. It's going to take us about 99 months, all right? So 99 months to pay off how much? 240,000, because 240K, right? Because we're going to include this and then the 200,000. And how much is 99 months divided by 12? That's about 8.25 years, right? So 8.25 years to pay off all this debt, and then we're debt free. 8.25 years. So that's pretty good, right? 8.25 years to be mortgage free and all debt free. Yeah. So again, some people say, "Oh, can't do Velocity Bank with a credit card," but guess what? Did I have access to a personal or home equity line of credit here? No. And again, I know there are some restrictions, so I could use Plastique. I could use Plastique, and again, Plastique knows that when you have one operating account, line of credit, or a credit card, and you pay things like rent, utilities, you can pay loans, right? I've paid, I think a long time ago, I actually paid a student loan with this. But I know for sure that you can definitely pay a mortgage with certain cards. Now, I think they have some restrictions on certain cards too, like Amex. I think Visa, you can't even pay a mortgage. So Discover, I think you can, but you have to always check the terms and conditions. But again, just because you have a credit card, personal line of credit, doesn't mean you can't do this. You can just use a few additional tools at your disposal, and that's what I want you to do. And who knows, maybe you might be like this guy and get $5,000 in rewards points for, paying off 60 grand of your mortgage easily, right? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so, what about you? Are you using Velocity Banking with a credit card? That's like I said, this is what I first did in the very beginning. And then in the end, I switched to a home equity line of credit. And I also use a credit card, right? Because there's always advantages and disadvantages to both. So use the best of both worlds, which I go over in another video. Okay. Also, if you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. And not only do we learn about Velocity Banking in our group, we also learn about real estate investing, financial literacy. So if you're interested in essentially being a landlord or maybe a fix and flipper, go ahead and click the Google form link below. Other than that, have a great day, and we will speak next time.